Hello guys, welcome back again. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever you're watching. Today we're going to have a nice discussion with one of the great author, and I've met him once, and we had a great discussion during that time, and it's good to have him back again to review one of his books. So thanks for joining, and I'll be asking some couple of questions related to his book, and he will be shedding more light and enlightening us more about the book. The book is Microsoft 365 Fundamental MS-900 Exam Guide.
Yep.
I've gone through the book, and it's really nice book to have, especially when you're preparing for this examination. It's a great certification to have, and this is 100% complete exam guide that can help you pass this exam on time. So I recommend you check it out. It's available at Amazon, and it's also available at Pact website. So I'll post the link on the description of this video, so you can always check it out. So without wasting much time, let's dive into it. And firstly, I would like Aaron to introduce himself once again for people that don't actually know him or have not seen him or heard him before. I'll give some minutes for him to talk briefly about himself.
So sure. Thanks for having me. So like you said, my name is Aaron. I've been in the tech industry for right around 25 years, maybe a little bit more. I'm going to stop counting now because that makes me feel old. Uh, Primarily involved with the Microsoft stack. Uh, Maybe about 7 or 8 years ago, I started writing books. I've written books for both Microsoft Press and for Pat. Previously, I was a consultant and a program manager at Microsoft. I am back into the wide world of consulting at a Microsoft partner, but I still enjoy writing books and communicating, my thoughts and helping people pass the exams. Primarily, I've written other books that aren't really exam focused as well, but I think most of the ones I've written in the past couple of years are focused on the Microsoft 365 platform and its corresponding exams.
Yeah, thank you for the brief introduction. So let's dive into it real quick. I have some couple of questions related to this book, this exam guide, the MS 900. And I would like him to shed more light on, you know, give us more insight as much as possible related to this book. So my first, which goes this way, my first question is, could you share with our viewers your expertise on Microsoft 365 identity and security platform?
Well, I have been, like I said, I've been working with Microsoft technologies for about 25 years and been working with yeah, the Microsoft 365 platform since before it was that. Previously, it was Office 365, before they added the Windows and EMS components. And I've been working with it since pretty much since it launched back in the BPOS days. So Business Productivity Online Services is what it used to be called. And throughout most of that time, I've mainly worked with identity and messaging pieces. So, those topics have been probably the things I've worked the most with. And but in terms of like this particular exam, there are it's really a smattering of everything since it's a foundational exam. It's really about becoming familiar with the platform as a whole. So you don't need to be an expert in any of the pieces, and it's really just focused uh, on helping you get up to speed with all the different components and types of components that there are, whether it is the identity and security components, the endpoint security components. There's messaging and messaging hygiene. Uh, there are the productivity applications like everything like Outlook and Word and Excel. Knowing that those are available and how they're put together and built and deployed, understanding how Windows is serviced or updated, understanding how the apps are serviced and updated, understanding what the features of all of the different applications and tools are. You don't have to be able to configure everything or know everything about it, but really being aware of the feature sets, knowing that Teams has phone capabilities, it has webinar capabilities, it has live events, it has meetings and chat, and as well as being an app platform. There's a bunch of other apps inside the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. So knowing that Microsoft Forms exists and it's like a survey tool, or knowing about Planner, that's that's really the basis of it. I'm familiar and I'm comfortable using all the applications, and I think the qualified test candidate should be at least familiar with launching all of the applications and working with them, and maybe some of the administration, or at least some of the administration concepts.
Nice. Thanks for breaking that down. Which this will lead me to the second question. What significance does this book hold in assessing proficiency and expertise in Microsoft 365 services and components? Maybe alongside with their implementation, security, licensing, and maybe like general cloud concepts.
Uh, I think the importance is really around uh, being aware, like I said before, being aware of the platform components. So from a business perspective, being able to if your boss or a peer or somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I really have this problem. What do you think I do? How do you think I fix it? Or what do you think I should do?" Um, this book helps you understand the fundamentals of the platform to say, oh, you need to conduct a meeting. Teams is the thing you should use. Oh, you need to, you know, improve the messaging security for the emails that you're receiving. Exchange Online Protection or Defender for Office. Those components would be the things that you use to improve your security posture. You need to, figure out how you want to authenticate into the platform. Well, understanding the differences between, identity synchronization or federation, those are important concepts, and and understanding those can help you advise somebody on choosing the right solution. So that's really all it is across the entire board. This is a more of an entry level exam, and it's really just focused on becoming familiar uh, with the products that are available in the platform. You can kind of think about it like that consulting 101 level,
Yeah.
where you talk to a customer and the customer is just telling you about, all the different business challenges that they have. And you're able, and with your knowledge gained from, this book and passing this particular exam,
Mhm.
comfortably, hear their request, hear their problem statement, and then translate that to a product or a service. And then,
Right.
basically recommend you should purchase, this particular SKU, you should deploy this particular feature. That's
Mm.
really the basis of this particular exam. There's some information in there, like you mentioned earlier, about licensing.
Yeah.
So, and how you can recommend to a customer to acquire the licensing, how it's paid for. Um, it really helps you answer all of those 100 level questions that you might get from a customer. Maybe the first time you meet them.
Mm. That's interesting. I know you've written a lot of books, but I'm just curious what inspired you to write this book?
This is the third edition of this book. So the first one came out almost 4 years ago, or maybe actually, yeah, right around 4 years ago. So as the products change, I think it's important just to keep people updated. Like this one introduced, we introduced concepts of like zero trust security. We introduced all of the new Viva components. That's a big push in the employee experience space for Microsoft. So really, I'm just always interested in making sure that I've provided, relevant and up-to-date information. I would hope that as long as this exam continues to be relevant, I'll be refreshing this book every year or so.
Yeah, that actually makes sense. It's good to review book every time just to get it updated every time. So another question I have in mind to ask is, who are the targets for this book? I mean, who are the people that actually needs this guide?
Uh, there's several targets. I think people who are just starting off on their certification career with Microsoft. I think this is a great foundational piece to understand, all of what there is to offer. And then, it's not a prerequisite exam for any, but I think it's good to understand the business and how the products work. Another really good target would be, project managers or business analysts. Just again, so they can have that, they don't need to be experts, but to be familiar with, the tools in the toolbox, if you will, so that when they are faced with business problems, they know what the platform offers and can help guide and select the appropriate tools.
Right, right. That totally makes sense. So, how do you prioritize and in terms of prioritization and organization of this book? How do you manage to ensure the content, is comprehensive and covers every exam objectives?
Well, to start off with, we build an outline that is based on the actual blueprint and the study guide that Microsoft offers. So Microsoft has a very defined process for establishing the content domains and the question domains and all of the different uh, important pieces of data they want you to know, and that's stored up in the exam blueprint, and that eventually makes it into the exam study guide. So that breaks down, topic domain and section by section, the different types of content that you need to know, the different subject areas. So combined with, taking that knowledge and then combining that with, my experience with the platform. I have written Microsoft exams before, so I have a really good idea of the types of things that get asked. So really the combination of those two things, like I said, evaluating the study guide to know what topics are in scope for the exam, and then just progressing through them from, least complexity and least difficulty to the more complicated and more complex, more difficult topics. Just using those opportunities to, build up that knowledge and convey the end principle. And at the end of every chapter is a little quiz, and at the end of the book are a couple of exams, so you can get an idea for how the questions are structured and how you might need to adjust your studying based on how well you do.
Right, right, right. So, I know there are a lot of books, exam guide out there related to this, similar to this, but I'm just curious to know how this book can help, a candidate to pass this exam, MS-900 exam, maybe one time.
So I think what separates it. So there are a variety of different uh, types of study materials. There are study materials in books that are just all questions and answers. So that is just, core memorization, right? Anybody can memorize an answer and spit it back out. There are some books that tend to be really light and really just full of links to the Microsoft product documentation. So that makes it hard. It makes it hard to have something you can have in your hand and read cover to cover if every third sentence is refer to the support article, refer to this knowledge base article, or refer to this piece of documentation. I think it's more useful to have all of that information laid out that you can reference offline. If you need to take it with you, take it. You want to go to the cabin, you want to go sit down on your porch. I really try to be complete in this, in offering all of the stuff that you need to know. And aside from just providing a couple hundred questions that you can memorize, I think it's more important to understand the concepts and to understand how we got to the answers. That way, as Microsoft refreshes the questions, which also happens periodically. Microsoft is continuously going back to the exams and doing a content refresh for the questions. If you already understand the products and you know how Defender for Office works, or you know how Defender for Endpoint works, that makes it much easier to stay updated and to pass future versions of the exam, uh, as opposed to just memorizing questions, especially if questions are focused on the typical speeds and feeds types of things like you know how many widgets does this support. Well, it's always changing. They're always adding support, making allowing you to manage bigger and bigger amounts of things. So just purely memorizing numbers like that, or very specific things, I don't think it's as useful in your progression as a professional, if all you're doing is memorizing a static piece of.
Yeah, yeah, I can testify to that because I know in your last book, the MS-102, is very, very practical. So the hands-on part is there. So it's something you can practicalize. So I 100% testify to that. So, and I appreciate that effort and the approach because hands-on is very important. And it's not just to memorize the answer, but to actually know it. So that is the most important thing. So, which lead to my next question. So, is there any kind of a prerequisite required for the reader to benefit from this book?
Really, it's like I said before, it's entry level. So being familiar with a web browser, and being familiar with very basic concepts like DNS,
Yeah.
I think really all you need. I would recommend going and signing up for a trial tenant so that you can click through and see and experience it. Uh, you know, we did the best we could to capture current screenshots of things, but those things also change. It gets refreshed and overhauled several times a year. So I think again, it's important to be familiar with. You don't have to be an expert for this test, but you do need to be familiar with the products and the general capabilities and concepts. So by having a tenant, you can click through it at your own pace and discover new features, discover new settings, see things that I reference in the book, and then find out where they are and kind of how they interact or interplay with other components. That's I think that's really the best way to experience this book or this exam, or really any exam, any certification exam, is to get a copy of the product, get access to the product, and then to go through it and experience it.
Right, right, right. So in terms of methodology, I know we have a lot of different books, different authors, the way they write, the way they approach. So, and sometimes I can find some book difficult to grasp or to understand compared to others. So I'm just curious to know the methodology you applied, to this book when you're trying to or when you're authoring it, um, that can help the reader to understand quickly and grasp the concept effectively.
So again, like I said before, a lot of it is just experience. I know how they work, so I can explain. I find myself in position of having to explain things to non-technical people often. Uh, so being able to explain at a 50,000 foot view how a product works to maybe an IT director or a vice president of IT. They're responsible for making business decisions, not necessarily technical decisions. So because I have that consulting experience and I'm familiar and I'm comfortable doing that, I think it lends well to writing books, especially books that are not overly technical. And then through the development and editing process, we also bring in editors that are not specifically technical, so they can highlight things that don't make sense or don't seem to be clear. I think by getting a lot of people exposed to the development process when we're creating a book, we get a lot of feedback that helps us strike that right balance between technical enough, detailed enough, and approachable.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I agree with that. So, in terms of resources or additional resources, is there any online material provided alongside with the book to support the reader, in their learning journey? And how can reader access these resources?
So once you purchase the book, there are some QR codes to scan and navigate to a couple of websites to access some of the resources. So I think there are some flashcards. So basic like terminology things that you can access and kind of flip through them online, as well as quizzes at the end of each chapter. So there's usually 3 to 5 questions at the end of. Actually, there's yeah 3 to 5 questions at the end of each chapter to to help kind of test your immediate knowledge, your immediate recall of the concepts you just covered. And then there are two full-length exams once you get to the end. All of those are available online. You just scan that QR code and you register your book, and then you're immediately granted access to those. And you can log in, you can take the exams, and you can take them over and over again as many times as you want until you get a comfortable score. And then there's also you know, some exam prep tips as well, uh, really focusing on, the types of content that you should be aware of. And just like I said before, encouraging you to get a tenant and go through and just click through and experience it yourself.
Yeah, that's very, very insightful. I know you you out of this book, but I believe out of all the topics in the book, you will definitely have one that you like most, or I would say the favorite. Which one or what topic I would say from this book that is your favorite?
I think the zero trust topic is my favorite because it's a little bit more technical, but I think it's so important, especially with you know so much stuff being online. I think it's important for everybody to understand those security concepts and to be able to evaluate their own security posture. It's not a it doesn't make it doesn't show up exactly that way on the exam. I think that content is a little bit more bonus content, but I still think it's foundational enough that you need to know it. You should know and understand it. It used to have its own exam objective. I think the last round. This round it doesn't.
Okay.
Uh, but it's still included, but it's like little extra information for you to know. I think that by including it again in this version of the book, I refreshed it and updated it a bit. I think it just helps make you a more well-rounded professional, and I would say that's probably my favorite chapter of the book.
Yeah, I'll take note of that and I will check that particular topic myself. So I have two more questions before we wrap everything up. What are the key takeaways from this book?
I think the key takeaways are uh, just being familiar with the all of the capabilities that the platform has. There are a lot of products in the platform, whether it's the ones you know and love, like the Office apps, like Word and Outlook and Excel. There's SharePoint, and there's Teams, and there's Forms and Planner, and there's the exchange component. There's the power platform components. So we're talking about Power Apps and Power Automate and Power BI. So knowing that all those exist and knowing what they're all used for, I think that really goes a long way to understanding and helping you succeed through the exam. It's really a lot of just knowing what to pick when.
Hmm, that makes sense a lot. So, my last question goes to in terms of the tips, advice. So, for people that are preparing for this MS-900, what advice would you give or exam tip would you provide to the individual who are preparing for this exam?
Get a tenant, get a test tenant. I think that's the number one thing you can do for yourself is to get a tenant, get it what provision one, and then read the book. while you have your test. And so, in places where there might be examples or things to click on, navigate and log in as an administrator so you can see the features and see the controls that are available to you. You don't have to, like I said, you don't have to spend a lot of time on it, but I think that is uh, probably the most important thing you can do from the perspective of you know transferring it from just being book knowledge to head knowledge. So you experience all of those different pieces. There's questions on the exam that deal with reporting. Um, you should go look at the reports, right? So the only way to reports is to open up the admin center
Yeah,
and drill down into all of the reports. Oh, this is what the OneDrive users report shows. Oh, this is what, and just look at those options.
right.
Look at the types of data that's shown there. And it's the same thing with all of them. Every feature, just browse through them. I mean, the tenant is free. It's free for 30 days. So, and you can keep on getting new tenants. There's no if it takes you a couple months to study, that's fine. You can just keep on getting new test tenants.
Right. So I have a bonus question. Yeah, so I know the book is, I know how loaded it is, but how many times do you recommend, students to read it, to go over and over, just to make sure they grasp everything inside before attempting the exam?
Yeah, I think you know read it all once at least, and I would say read it until you can get like 80% or better on the exam. The passing score for the exam I believe is 700,
Okay.
so which is like a 70% give or take. Uh, there are other types of questions on the exams that aren't represented online, in the online material that we provide. So there are some like drag and drops, and there are some, scenario-based questions but for the most part, I think if you can go through the practice exam and get like an 80 or an 85%, I think you're ready. And if you can't, if you're not scoring that high, when you do the question reviews, I believe there are links to the supporting documentation. So if
Mhm.
you get it wrong, there's a link there that says, this answer is wrong because of this. This answer is wrong
Yeah.
because this answer is right. And in the end, there's like a link to the actual Microsoft Learn supporting documentation. So if you're having problems, in a particular topic area, just take the online exam, find the weak areas, review those areas in the book, but also capture down those URLs and just click on them and read the corresponding Microsoft Learn page. There might be a little tidbit in there that helps it, click differently for you.
Hmm. Well, I appreciate the breakdown. I appreciate you answering all the questions. So, guys, this is Aaron. He has a lot of book in Amazon. You can check his books out. The one I had with him last was MS-0, 102, and it was a really nice book. I went through it, and so I'm fully confident in this book that if you get it, you know, read it, practice, do everything, and pass your exam in one attempt. I believe that. So this will take us to the end of the show. I appreciate you all for coming in and joining and answering those questions. And thanks to every viewers out there. Thanks for your support. I appreciate you, and I will see you on the next video.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for having me.
Mhm. Thank you, everyone.